Looking rich feels incredible at first because it gives you instant validation, attention, and the comforting illusion that you finally made it. But beneath that excitement, many people quietly feel anxious, stressed, and trapped, wondering why money still feels so heavy every night. I'm Alex, and I've spent years studying why people who look successful often feel financially suffocated instead of truly free. If you've ever felt pressure to appear successful while secretly worrying about bills, debt, or stability, this conversation is meant for you. Before we go deeper, gently like this video if it resonates, because it helps others discover calmer, more honest discussions about money. Leave a comment if you've ever bought something mainly for appearance, and subscribe if you want financial clarity without hype or noise. Most people believe financial success should be visible, but the truth is, real freedom often looks boring, quiet, and completely unimpressive. We're taught that success means nicer cars, bigger homes, better clothes, and vacations that prove our lives are finally worth admiring. Nobody warns us that chasing that image can slowly drain our choices, our peace, and eventually our financial freedom itself. The uncomfortable reality is this: looking rich and being financially free are two completely different paths heading opposite directions. Looking rich focuses on what others see, while financial freedom focuses on what you're allowed to say no to. When your money decisions are driven by image, you stop asking whether something improves your life or simply upgrades your appearance. That shift feels harmless at first, but it quietly hands control of your finances to social pressure and expectations. In America, success is often measured visually, which trains us to perform prosperity instead of building stability beneath the surface. Social media magnifies this problem, rewarding people who look wealthy while ignoring whether their finances are actually sustainable. Over time, many high earners discover they're working harder each year, yet feeling more financially fragile than before. That's not because they failed, but because they unknowingly played a game designed around appearances, not long-term freedom. Once you start spending to maintain an image, stopping feels dangerous, even when your stress keeps rising. This is where financial freedom quietly slips away, not through one mistake, but through many small image-driven choices. And understanding this moment is critical, because everything that follows depends on whether you keep performing or finally step off stage. Keys. The problem isn't spending money itself, but spending to impress people who aren't responsible for your future or your stress. Most of us never consciously choose this path. We slowly drift into it through habits that feel normal and socially rewarded. A nicer car feels justified. Then a better apartment follows. Then trips and clothes that match the new image. Each upgrade seems small alone, but together they quietly lock your lifestyle to a level your freedom can't escape. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it convinces smart people they're progressing while actually shrinking their margin for mistakes. The higher your fixed expenses climb, the less flexible your life becomes, no matter how impressive it looks from outside. Suddenly, quitting a job feels impossible. Taking risks feels reckless, and rest feels undeserved, even when you're exhausted. What began as motivation slowly transforms into obligation, and obligation is the enemy of financial peace. Many Americans earning six figures still live paycheck to paycheck because appearances silently dictate their spending decisions. The danger isn't poverty. It's dependency on income continuing perfectly without interruption or unexpected emergencies. When your lifestyle requires constant income, your freedom disappears the moment that income feels threatened. That fear changes how you think, negotiate, and tolerate situations you would otherwise walk away from confidently. You stay in jobs you dislike, accept stress you shouldn't, and silence instincts telling you something feels wrong. This isn't weakness. It's what happens when your financial structure prioritizes image over resilience. The system rewards visible success, so we confuse applause with progress and attention with actual security. Over time, people stop asking how much they save and start asking how they're perceived. That subtle shift changes every financial decision, turning money into a performance instead of a tool. Once money becomes performance, stress increases because performances never end and expectations keep rising. The scariest part is realizing you're busy maintaining an image that doesn't even guarantee peace. And this is where many people pause, sensing something is wrong, yet unsure how to step away without falling behind. Chertiund. At this stage, people feel successful publicly, but privately fear that one mistake could unravel everything they worked so hard to build. That fear isn't irrational. It comes from knowing your lifestyle depends on uninterrupted income and constant external approval. When income controls your choices, freedom quietly disappears, even if your resume and Instagram suggest otherwise. Many people sense this tension but dismiss it, telling themselves stress is simply the price of ambition and success. Over time, that belief hardens, and stress becomes normalized, even when it damages health, relationships, and mental clarity. Dauer. The tragedy is that none of this looks like failure, so nobody warns you that something valuable is slipping away. From the outside, everything seems impressive, yet internally you feel less calm, less flexible, and less in control. This gap between appearance and reality creates quiet anxiety that follows people into evenings, weekends, and sleepless nights. You start measuring success by reactions, compliments, and comparisons rather than stability, peace, or genuine security. That's when money stops being a tool for your life and becomes a constant test you're afraid to fail. Darnis. Every purchase begins carrying hidden pressure, because once you upgrade publicly, stepping backward feels humiliating and risky. Pride traps people in lifestyles they can technically afford, but emotionally and mentally cannot sustain long-term. This is how the status trap tightens, not through extravagance, but through consistency that leaves no room to breathe. You don't feel rich, you feel responsible for maintaining an identity others now expect you to uphold. That responsibility quietly steals joy, because enjoyment turns into obligation the moment it becomes part of your image. Many people confuse this pressure with discipline, believing endurance proves strength rather than signaling imbalance. But true financial strength isn't endurance. It's flexibility when life inevitably changes without asking permission. When flexibility disappears, so does the ability to choose rest, risk, or change on your own terms. This is why looking rich feels good early, but slowly replaces confidence with constant background tension. And unless something interrupts this pattern, the pressure compounds quietly until freedom feels like a distant memory. To understand how widespread this is, look at recent data showing many high earners still struggle with basic financial resilience. According to recent Federal Reserve reports, a large percentage of Americans cannot handle a modest emergency without borrowing. What surprises people is that this includes households earning well above the national median income level. High income often masks fragile finances, because spending rises faster than stability when image becomes the priority. Many people assume financial stress disappears once income increases, but stress simply changes shape and becomes quieter. Free. Instead of worrying about survival, people worry about maintaining appearances and avoiding visible decline. This creates a constant background pressure that never fully relaxes, even during vacations or moments meant for rest. Credit cards, car loans, and subscriptions quietly absorb future income, reducing flexibility without creating lasting satisfaction. Debt isn't always caused by irresponsibility. It's often fueled by social comparison and unspoken expectations. When everyone around you upgrades, staying still feels like falling behind, even if your finances are healthier. Tart. That psychological pressure explains why visible lifestyles keep inflating faster than actual long-term financial security. People rarely discuss this openly, because admitting stress conflicts with the successful image they've carefully built. Silence becomes part of the trap, preventing honest conversations about money, anxiety, and hidden financial strain. Over time, this isolation makes individuals believe they're failing alone, even though millions feel exactly the same. The truth is uncomfortable. Financial stress is often highest among those trying hardest to appear financially comfortable. Looking rich hides the warning signs, delaying necessary changes until pressure becomes unavoidable or painful. By the time people recognize the problem, reversing habits feels overwhelming and emotionally threatening. Change requires admitting that the image you built isn't serving the life you actually want. That realization can feel destabilizing, because identity and self-worth are often tied to visible success. But this moment of discomfort is also where real financial freedom quietly begins to reappear. At this turning point, I ask myself, am I spending for myself, or am I performing for everyone else's approval? Many people never ask this, and it quietly determines whether wealth serves their freedom or their image. Social comparison drives choices that feel necessary, but often trap us in cycles of anxiety and overextension. From friends' vacations to co-workers' cars, every visible upgrade nudges us toward a lifestyle that isn't truly ours. That's the subtle danger, chasing approval while thinking you're chasing prosperity. I realized that the moment I stopped measuring myself against others, my financial decisions became calmer, more intentional. This doesn't mean giving up enjoyment. It means enjoying life without letting appearances dictate every choice. Identity and self-worth often tie tightly to visible success, and breaking that connection is both liberating and frightening. Most people fear losing social recognition more than losing money, which ironically keeps them financially enslaved. That's why stealth wealth works. It protects your money and your peace while allowing you to choose when to reveal success. People often assume showing wealth impresses others, but it mostly fuels jealousy, envy, and higher expectations. Suddenly, friends and acquaintances treat you differently, whether consciously or unconsciously, and relationships shift subtly. Those shifts can feel isolating, even when surrounded by people who previously seemed loyal and genuine. I've watched highly successful individuals experience subtle tension and micro-conflicts just because their financial status became obvious. That pressure often drives unnecessary spending, as they feel compelled to maintain a lifestyle for public consumption. Meanwhile, true financial freedom comes from making choices that prioritize security, flexibility, and genuine satisfaction. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires awareness of patterns and courage to ignore societal expectations. Once you start thinking in terms of real freedom, spending and lifestyle decisions feel purposeful, not performative. The difference is subtle but profound. One path leads to quiet peace, the other to constant stress disguised as success. And recognizing that difference early allows you to redirect energy, maintain wealth, and reclaim control over your life. This is where stealth wealth becomes a game changer. Quietly building assets while life around you continues without unnecessary pressure. Stealth wealth isn't about being cheap. It's about choosing wisely where your money works hardest for your freedom and future. Instead of flashy cars and designer clothes, I focus on investments, savings, and experiences that genuinely improve my life. Every dollar not spent on showing off becomes a dollar that compounds quietly, growing wealth over decades without drawing attention. I realize that friends and family interact differently when they have no clue about your finances, and relationships feel authentic again. Choosing modest homes and reasonable cars isn't deprivation. It's protection against stress, envy, and financial traps. Subtle decisions like this preserve freedom, allowing me to make big moves without external pressure or expectations. When you're not performing, your life becomes a laboratory for choices that actually matter, rather than choices designed for appearance. I discovered that people who publicly display wealth often end up living paycheck to paycheck, trapped by lifestyle inflation they never admit. Conversely, people quietly building assets experience stress differently. Small setbacks feel manageable rather than catastrophic. This approach also highlights the hidden cost of keeping up with peers, which often steals decades of wealth unnoticed. I track all spending carefully, not to restrict life, but to ensure it aligns with freedom, not appearances. Emergencies no longer feel like disasters, because a financial buffer exists without anyone needing to know or admire it. Traveling, learning, and enjoying hobbies becomes easier, because choices aren't filtered through societal approval. Stealth wealth also changes how I negotiate deals. People treat me based on merit, not assumption about my wealth. That advantage compounds silently, reinforcing opportunities while avoiding traps others fall into due to flashy appearances. Everyday interactions feel lighter. You no longer fear hidden motives or subtle expectations from those around you. Financial decisions feel intentional and liberating instead of dictated by perceived social ranking or envy. It's remarkable how much peace appears when wealth is quiet. Your life no longer feels like a stage performance, and that peace transforms how you live, work, and think, turning every choice into an opportunity instead of a performance. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that the quiet approach to wealth reveals true human character around you. People reveal their generosity, honesty, or selfishness when they have no idea about your financial situation. I've watched colleagues and friends act differently, depending on whether they think I can cover the cost or not. The insight is priceless. Those who treat you well when they think you have nothing are the ones you can trust. Conversely, those who only value you when your wealth is obvious often bring subtle pressure and expectations. Stealth wealth allows me to observe this quietly, making decisions about relationships with clarity rather than emotion. You start to notice patterns. Who gives freely? Who takes advantage? And who maintains integrity regardless of circumstances? That knowledge transforms both personal and professional interactions, letting you avoid costly misjudgments. Experiences gain depth when wealth isn't a performance. Moments with friends, family, and nature become richer and more memorable. There's a liberation in removing the social spotlight from your financial life. It allows joy to exist independently of perception. This doesn't mean you avoid generosity. It means generosity becomes a choice, not a reaction to expectation. By giving quietly, the impact becomes authentic and deeply appreciated, reinforcing relationships rather than creating obligations. Everyday purchases feel intentional. Each choice aligns with goals, freedom, and long-term satisfaction, not validation. I prioritize experiences over possessions because memories and skills compound long-term value, while objects often depreciate emotionally and financially. Investing in assets rather than flashy items creates compounded freedom, whereas showing off wealth creates compounded stress. Small daily decisions, like skipping a luxury item or staying in modest accommodations, accumulate enormous benefits over time. Hedonic adaptation shows that new possessions bring temporary pleasure, while strategic freedom yields enduring satisfaction. Every dollar not wasted on appearances becomes a tool for future options, whether travel, investment, or time with loved ones. I've observed that people who embrace stealth wealth sleep better, negotiate smarter, and take calculated risks without fear. The quiet approach compounds not just money, but peace, freedom, and the ability to shape life intentionally rather than reactively. I've seen people driving luxury cars, flashing expensive watches, yet constantly anxious, always calculating what impression they're making. Meanwhile, people quietly wealthy drive reliable cars, invest wisely, and their stress levels remain surprisingly low despite higher net worth. The difference isn't income, it's intention, choices, and whether wealth serves life or ego. Social pressure quietly dictates visible spenders' lives, forcing them into appearances that require constant maintenance. Friends, family, and colleagues subtly shift behavior around those who display wealth, creating unspoken expectations and obligations. I've watched high earners feel trapped in conversations and events, as if every interaction carries a hidden cost. That hidden cost isn't money alone. It's stress, anxiety, and the fear of disappointing or losing face. Conversely, people practicing stealth wealth interact naturally. Relationships feel genuine, and expectations don't overshadow choices. This creates a psychological edge. Decisions are guided by opportunity rather than image, stress, or social obligation. The subtle advantage compounds over years, quietly multiplying wealth, freedom, and personal satisfaction simultaneously. Media often glamorizes visible wealth, ignoring the hidden stress and subtle traps that come with flashy lifestyles. I realized that learning to ignore these signals is critical. It prevents unnecessary competition and wasted effort. People obsessed with appearances often buy depreciating assets simply to maintain status, unknowingly sacrificing long-term security. Stealth wealth flips this paradigm. It prioritizes appreciating assets, experiences, and flexibility over social approval. Even small habits, like choosing modest clothing or driving reliable vehicles, protect your freedom and reduce stress exponentially. What? Each decision reinforces a sense of control, allowing financial and personal freedom to grow quietly yet consistently. I often remind myself, the goal isn't to appear rich, but to feel secure, empowered, and able to act without external pressure. That mindset allows me to negotiate, invest, and plan life with clarity that flashy wealth simply cannot provide. Real freedom emerges not from spending to impress, but from allocating resources strategically and intentionally for future benefit. And that subtle, intentional approach creates compounding effects far beyond what appearances or social validation could ever achieve. Let me share a real example. A colleague earned millions in real estate, yet drives an old pickup truck and wears simple clothes every day. His crew has no idea he owns the company, and he enjoys genuine interactions without anyone expecting favors or money. Meanwhile, another investor flaunted luxury cars and designer clothes, constantly fielding requests and subtle pressure from friends and family. Despite similar income levels, the first person reports lower stress, better relationships, and more freedom to make choices. I realized the pattern. Visible wealth attracts hidden obligations, while stealth wealth protects both finances and peace of mind. Key. Another example, a tech entrepreneur keeps his financial achievements private, allowing him to focus on projects instead of impressing others. He negotiates deals calmly, chooses opportunities based on merit, and avoids inflated expectations from suppliers or partners. This quiet approach allows strategic decisions and long-term investments to compound without the distraction of social validation. Contrast that with peers who display success publicly. They often overextend credit, overspend on status symbols, and experience burnout. The lesson is clear. Visibility amplifies pressure and diminishes real freedom, while invisibility preserves it. Many of my readers and viewers have shared similar stories, validating that stealth wealth consistently reduces stress across income levels. When you remove appearances from the equation, interactions feel authentic, and you gain insight into true character and intentions. This allows me to form meaningful relationships without the constant question, are they here for me or my money? Even small gestures, like choosing modest restaurants or travel options, reinforce independence from societal expectations. The cumulative effect is incredible. Wealth grows quietly, relationships deepen authentically, and stress fades from daily life. Another insight, when wealth is private, mistakes and learning moments remain personal, not public performances to be judged. This fosters confidence and self-reliance, letting you experiment with investments, careers, and life choices without scrutiny. I've observed that the quiet approach also improves decision-making under pressure, because ego and image no longer cloud judgment. Experiences and decisions focus on personal growth, security, and fulfillment, rather than external validation or applause. And that's the true advantage of stealth wealth. It transforms both financial outcomes and quality of life in ways visible wealth never can. At this point, I want to emphasize one key truth. True prosperity is measured by freedom, not appearances or external approval. When you stop performing wealth, you reclaim time, focus, and mental energy previously spent maintaining an image. That mental space allows for strategic decisions in career, investments, and personal life that compound quietly over decades. Avoiding flashy displays doesn't reduce enjoyment. It enhances it because experiences are pursued for personal satisfaction, not showmanship. Financial freedom allows you to leave toxic situations, negotiate calmly, and make choices aligned with long-term goals instead of short-term praise. Consider prioritizing investments, emergency funds, and assets that appreciate, rather than cars, vacations, or gadgets meant to impress others. The subtle benefit is peace of mind. You can handle unexpected expenses, take calculated risks, and sleep without worry. This also allows for intentional generosity, where giving comes from choice and impact, not expectation or obligation. Family, friends, and colleagues interact more authentically when they are unaware of your wealth, letting you see true character clearly. When wealth is visible, every interaction carries pressure and expectation. Keeping it quiet preserves autonomy and clarity. Bartiz. The irony is that showing off often attracts people with motives, while quiet wealth cultivates genuine relationships and trust. Social media has amplified the trap, rewarding visibility over substance and making stealth wealth more counterintuitive but more powerful. Each dollar not spent on appearances can work for you, compounding in investments that grow your freedom and options exponentially. When people cannot see your wealth, you maintain leverage in negotiations, business deals, and life choices without bias or assumptions. Avoiding the performance of wealth reduces mental load, allowing creativity, focus, and emotional energy to flourish naturally. The most financially secure individuals often appear ordinary, quietly building wealth while enjoying freedom others mistake for simplicity. By contrast, visible wealth frequently results in higher stress, more obligations, and slower accumulation of real net worth. Understanding this dynamic allows you to make conscious choices, aligning lifestyle with personal goals rather than social expectations. Remember, the goal isn't to hide wealth from life, but to prevent life from being dictated by the perception of wealth. And that realization is the tipping point where financial freedom, authentic relationships, and peace of mind truly begin to converge. As we wrap up, I want you to pause and reflect. Are you living for others' approval, or are you quietly building your own freedom? The difference may feel subtle, but over time it compounds into decades of stress-free choices and lasting wealth. Remember, looking rich feels good temporarily, but financial freedom feels deeper, lasting, and completely yours to control. Small daily decisions, skipping flashy purchases, investing intentionally, and maintaining privacy can create exponential benefits over years. Stealth wealth is a mindset. Patience, intentionality, and quiet confidence replace anxiety, comparison, and performance pressure. Relationships improve when wealth is private. People treat you for who you are, not for what they assume you have. True generosity comes from choice, not obligation, and your influence becomes more meaningful when it isn't performed for recognition. I encourage you to review your own spending, habits, and motives. Are they enhancing freedom or feeding appearances? If this video resonated, like, share, and comment below. What is one habit you will change to reclaim your financial freedom? Subscribe for more insights, and remember, the richest people you'll ever meet often look ordinary, but their freedom speaks louder than their possessions.